Hello everybody, my name is Dave Cowan. I am a dowsing instructor, and I thank you for taking a few moments to check out this little video clip as an introduction to dowsing. Of course, this is a video clip that goes along very well with the two manuals that I've written. So if you would like to follow up on some of this information and on these skills we're going to be talking about today, I invite you to visit our website, which is www.bluesunenergetics.net. That's one word, bluesunenergetics.net, and you can look at the dowsing manuals there that are available as ebooks, as well as some other materials to support you in your healing work. So obviously this is a DVD intended to help those that are interested in the art and science of spiritual dowsing. And before we go any further, I'd like to make a disclaimer here that this technique, or myself, again, are not licensed medical techniques. I'm not a licensed medical doctor, although I am a licensed spiritual health coach. And so any advice that I give on this broadcast is intended only to be for spiritual healing purposes. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or mitigate any diagnosable disease. And of course, who would want to, as that whole paradigm of disease diagnosis and treatment is grinding to a halt before our very eyes today, as being simply inadequate in meeting the needs of most of the population, and on the other side, actually fairly dangerous to a large number of people. So we, have really nothing to do with the medical paradigm or diagnosis of treatment whatsoever. So I'd like to talk about dowsing. Now, dowsing is an ancient art going back as far as Egyptian culture, perhaps further back than that, and it's simply a way of accessing intuitive knowing. Now, by intuitive knowing, what I simply mean is that aspect of intelligence that we're not necessarily consciously aware of, with that small 10% of the brain that we rely on so heavily, but that is the verbal, logical Broca's region, the language producing part of the brain, that we rely on so heavily for our orientation to the world and to time and space, but is really a very limited perspective. If you look at the structure of the mind in a, say, a iceberg model, you'd have conscious awareness would be that little 10% tip above the surface, and the vast amount of our awareness, of course, is below the surface. Well, dowsing is one way that we can access information from these higher levels or deeper levels of intelligence that we all have. It's our natural birthright, although I suppose at this stage of human evolution or development, we're not quite yet ready or there as far as being able to access this information spontaneously. So dowsing is just another way, just like muscle testing or intuitive work, medical intuitives, work on the same process. I guess one of the reasons I like dowsing is that it involves the use of physical tools, like a pendulum, like a bobber, which for me, being a male and being very tuned into the concrete world, I like to see things move, and I like to see physical responses to my questions. So dowsing works for me in that way, and other people can, of course, access this information directly. Basically what's going on here is that the physical body, that is the motor nerves and the larger muscles in your body, are basically wired into your that conscious mind. So when I consciously want a drink of water, for example, my motor nerves communicate through the muscles, and I get the glass of water in my hand. But the autonomic nervous system, which is wired into every organ and gland of the body, is wired, if you like, into the superconscious mind, or that other 90%. So most of the processes in my physical body are occurring and are controlled by my superconscious mind, such as my heart beating and me remembering to breathe. These are all things I don't have to remember on a conscious level, but my superconscious mind is mediating all of these events, along with trillions of other biochemical events every second in my body, largely mediated through the autonomic nervous system. A good example of this would be the fight or flight response, whereas when my superconscious mind is aware of an immediate threat to my survival, it automatically triggers all kinds of physiological responses to help me survive in those situations. So Really, dowsing is simply consciously tapping into these processes that largely occur unconsciously. So it really is a form of biofeedback, that is getting information, at least in the read-only function of dowsing, which is the normal use of dowsing. It really is a read-only system where we put forth questions and we get information back through specific bodily movements. So classic dowsing really is about that. It's about being able to ask questions and put it out there, as it were, into the superconscious mind. Now, on the level of the superconscious mind, we are connected to every other superconscious mind in the universe. So let's not forget that that as isolated bodies, on the conscious mind, we appear to be operating independently from each other, and I have my thoughts and you have your thoughts. But on the level of the superconscious mind and on the greater reality, all minds are joined. So again, metaphysically, we're operating on the level of what the Buddhists would call big mind. And of course, this big mind is really what is running and projecting, as it were, this entire universe of form. So, my birthright, as is your birthright, is to be able to access this level of information, intelligence, as it really is our greater self, if you like, our higher self, expressing in all of these different ways. So dowsing, again, is a way of tapping into that, bypassing the limitations of the conscious mind and simply being able to put out a question and receive back through the superconscious mind, through the autonomic nervous system, through specific movements in the body, an answer to your questions. Active dowsing, however, is something that's a little newer on the scene, and this is where, let's say, once you get information about maybe a future probability, for example, and it doesn't suit you, or it doesn't suit the highest good, or you want something better for yourself or for your loved ones or your clients. With active dowsing, we can actually use the volitional aspect of our consciousness, or will, if you like, along with our intention and our sincerity. We can use that to actually change that probability. So, in other words, the future is not fixed. It is something that is in our hands. It's something that we're making up as we go. We've already been doing this all along. It's nothing new. And so, as a means of tapping into the future and changing probabilities, we can also use dowsing in its active phase. So there are different instruments I showed you earlier. This is just a typical pendulum, and again, anything will work. It doesn't have to be, like a special stone or anything. I mean, you might have a personal attachment to a particular instrument or crystal or something, but don't be fooled into thinking that the magic is in the pendulum. The magic is in you, and anything will work in a pinch. I mean, I've used keys and dental floss and paper clips and whatever else is handy. I even used a tomato plant, I think, once in a pinch. But anything works. Any kind of object that will be suspended. Now, for the rest of these talks, I'll be using what I call a bobber. And a bobber really is just a large pendulum like this. And the reason I like it, a bobber, is because it's easier when you're doing group work. It's easier for people to see what's going on. And also, I like it because the movements are very clear and obvious. Of course, I've painted the end of this one white so that you can see it easier on this DVD. So, again, I invite you to stay tuned. I'm going to keep this short, as I understand that on YouTube they like to have these little things short. So I'm going to pick up in a few moments here, and I'll see you in the next installment.